Good morning, everybody. How are you? Happy Monday to you. Close to my preferred scheduled starting time. That is 11 a.m. Riga, 10 a.m. Paris, 9 a.m. London. Good morning. Hope everybody had a good weekend. Little weakness again from Bitcoin. Again, if you look at an hourly or 4-hour chart or something like that, it might seem more dramatic. You back it up to the daily. Look at the power curve. We're still treading along here between the 4th and the 5th number, which means the 40th and the 50th percentile on my chart. A lot of craziness around the world, but let's just look at Bitcoin here and try to keep calm. If you notice here, all right, at the end of the year, these numbers don't change much, all right? They are going down a little bit because this model updates every day, and every day that we're below that black line, that's the X factor, we pull it down, all right? But it's not changing that dramatically, okay? Curve was supposed to be supposed to be about this number by the end of the year. That is the price, low 25. And look at how now 125K is January 6th. All right, so it was supposed to be that way around December 31st. And now if you go back in time, you can see it falls a little bit, 124.5. Okay, so just adjust it every day. But if you back it up over the long term, we're still at a very nice 96% R squared, particularly since 2016. And this line is pretty good compared to this line, which is the evolving trend. So even though the geopolitical news gets crazier, Ukraine has a lot of electricity back on, which is great to hear, although people are still suffering there. Iran is madness. But all of us around the world have this little escape hatch, which is Bitcoin, in the midst of a lot of this uncertainty. Good morning, Bitcoin Polska, my friend. Glad to hear everything is good down in Poland. It's beautiful up here. Nice high pressure systems, sunny days. It's very good. So, yes, as I always say, it's a happier day when we're above this black line. We've been below it now for a while. But the big picture is still the same, and the trend makes sense. And it's a trend of network adoption more than perhaps unstable exponential cycles. I continue to look at this chart as bullish because I don't think this is the top. If it is the top, I'll be wrong. But I'm looking at number 3 right here. All right. Talked about it last week. To me, it's rare or unusual. You know, during each cycle, you get multiples higher in this number, right? This is revenue per year that miners make. And we just haven't blown it out this year at all. Got a little bit ahead of it, perhaps. Or even actually on schedule, because look at this. See, this was the last halving, and right at the last halving, we were pretty close to the last top. See how that works? Same here, pretty close. But this halving really knocked the wind out of the revenue the miners got, and then, it's just not growing much. But I would say this is actually quite a bullish chart because this could be just a temporary respite and we go higher. It's not a guarantee, but it's based on the past trends. We go higher each cycle with this number. So feel good about that. Now, again, if we put market cap on top of this number, specifically this number, which is block reward plus fees, rolled over 365 days, assuming that miners sold at that price at that day, roll all that revenue, you get, 17, 18 billion. Actually, not 18. I don't think we never hit 18, did we? No, 17.3. Roll that, or you just use that number in green, and then put the market cap on it, you'll get this multiple. Sorry, that's the trend. That's wrong still. This is the multiple. Okay, and then we can draw a trend again on this, which is not a great R squared. It's not as good as the price itself, but it certainly exhibits a power curve. Where are we? I'm going to take off the all-time, which is here, and I'm going to put the evolving, which is here. See it? Gives us a little bit of a picture of where, if we go over, under, right? In the past, if we fell below this black line, it was down. Okay. If we fall below this black line, let me just take off more so you see exactly what black line I'm talking about. That can stay. That can come off. That can come off. This black line right there. If the dotted black line falls below the other dotted black line, we go down. Okay? Even that 2019 pump fell below, we went down. 2021 double top, fell below the black line, we went down. Interestingly, we have not fallen below. Another positive sign. In fact, we've rebounded. It was looking pretty dark here, right? While the gold bugs were loving their Christmas season, we were falling in price and in this multiple. But we have rebounded. And we haven't crossed that line. Again, it's not a given. It's not a fact that we must pump if we haven't crossed it, or if we cross it, we will, it's a death cross, but that's generally the trend here. So if you smooth it all out, here's the line. Here's how it looks into the future. Not bad, huh? I look at this as not bad. Back to the old models. I'm sure you guys have been following me long enough to know the story here, but just in case someone's new, look at how off some of these can be, right? Here's the old Plan B 2019 model. No, sorry, 2020. 2020. Doesn't look that far on log scale, but it is. That's a $6 million Bitcoin price. Say goodbye to that. How about his 2019 model? 788,000. It's not really good. Say goodbye to that. Now, I put these other two together, which are stock to flows, and don't use any superfluous data points like gold growth or silver growth, because Bitcoin's not an exponential asset. And they're better, but still not great. Stock to flow doesn't show. Here's the trend from 2016, of course, worse. And here's the all-time trend, which makes sense that it's better. Number 4, still far off, though, 348. I don't like it. Then we go back to straight up shoehorned exponential trend. That's a straight line on log scale. Bitcoin's not an exponential asset. No matter what anybody tells you, that's not how it grows. Projection 785 today. That's wrong. 800,000. That's wrong. So then we get back to the good old. This should be very, very comforting to you. 2016 price versus all time. All right, so the 2016 price would project 135K by today. Zoom in. By today, 135K. All-time trend projects 128K. Yeah, disappointing. But this is how you measure Bitcoin adoption. I first published the chart right there, end of 2018, right there. And basically, the trend line hasn't changed, which is pretty cool. Final thing to say about this chart, I don't know how things will play out in the future, especially with governments becoming more involved in Bitcoin. I would hope. I think for Bitcoin, it makes sense that this continues. It's a network sort of growth. It's sustainable. Yes, it's not bombastic, but it's still, you know, pretty marvelous. You go out to 2030, we're in the 500,000. Really, I think it's going to be $600,000 range by the end of 2030. You go out 5 years after that, 1.7 million. It hits 1 million early 2030s. Right there. Go out to 2040. 4 million. There's nothing to get too upset about these numbers. But if we stay in this sort of debt-based, just a lot of fiat interest system, I do think it's possible that we could turn exponential. So let me think about to show this the best way. You zoom in, take off to 2016. Here's the all-time trend. And I showed here this before last year, but let's assume simply because Bitcoin becomes so layered with debt, there's a lot of paper Bitcoin on top of regular Bitcoin, which again is totally possible. There's no law of economics that could stop that from people levering up Bitcoin. And it's possible that that turns Bitcoin exponential, which would be a straight line on log scale from this point is a key word there. Then you could start to maybe look like this, which would be better prices, but it scares me a little bit in the long term. So look at the difference there. By 2050, $600 million Bitcoin versus $23 million Bitcoin. All of this is philosophical. No one knows the future. If you hold Bitcoin, you'll do fine in either scenario. But I think this actually is a good way to illustrate the possibility of a fiat world continuing and Bitcoin also continuing. That is number 8. Hello, number. Yes. A power law is a curve that grows according to a power, which is an exponent. And in Bitcoin's case, and I'll show you the formula. Let me just pull it up. The exponent is 6. You just have to run the math. So let me find you so you can find it on my website. There's 4 different types of regressions. Linear is very simple. All right. Y equals A plus BX. Basically, for every unit that you cross over on the x-axis, you also go up 1 unit, which is B. All right, logarithmic's a little bit different. It's when x equals 1, the curve will go up very fast. It's a nonlinear regression. Exponential power, they're also nonlinear regressions, but basically an exponential regression is what most people think of. So this is your PERT formula, or AE to the BX. Basically, you can turn this into compound growth. So as I showed here, An exponential function goes as a straight line. Okay, so if Bitcoin were to turn from power curve into an exponential curve, it would look like number 8. If Bitcoin stayed like a power curve, it would be in this gradually growing line, but the growth of that line is slower. And then the other thing to say about that is the growth is proportional with power curve. So as Bitcoin gets older, the growth grows proportional to the age. All right. And you have to run the math to figure out the number, but the number is basically about 13%. So the definition of Bitcoin's power law is as Bitcoin gets 13% older, and Bitcoin's about 6,000 and change days, so that's 700 days. So as Bitcoin gets 700 days older, the price doubles. All right. But 700 days from now, 13% of that base is larger. All right. So it takes a longer time to double. Whereas with an exponential curve, it's a constant growth, constant. And so if you graph constant growths, they will be like that. So this would be, the actual value is 42% a year because I picked this at the end of 2025. So what you see here, assuming Bitcoin goes at this rate, which is the rate of the power growth at the end of 2025, this is a 42% per year growth. So power laws are proportionate. Exponential curves are constant. And exponential growth is faster. So I know that's why people get excited with Bitcoin. They use the term exponential a lot, but it actually doesn't grow that way. Yeah, no problem. Is it because of the hard cap? Yeah, it's hard to actually, in my opinion, precisely define why. Clearly, the hard cap is a component of this, I would say. But the logic is not completely there either for me, right? Because here's an example. Let me show you gold. One second. Let me show you gold. So gold doesn't have a hard cap, right? There's 6 billion ounces of gold, ever mind, and that growth compounds. It doesn't stop. So hold on, let me get this. Always, when I get this new app up and running, it'll have much faster calculations. Let me just check something really quick. Yeah, I might have to tweak something. In any event, gold basically grows like this. All right, a straight line. If I were to show you 6 billion ounces of gold, they would grow like that. And weirdly, Bitcoin, both in price and in the actual supply of Bitcoins, if you look at that chart, it's actually more logarithmic, which is even more confusing still, but not worry about it. But the thing with gold is if you measure the price, the ounces, the market cap, it's all the straight line. Looks like this. Straight line on log scale, 100%. Bitcoin has a lot of weird features. And I think the best explainer or the best theory of why Bitcoin moves like this which is a proportional sustainable growth, is because it's a network. It's a network. Another power relationship we can say is this is not over time, but this is over the XY axis could be activity versus nodes, and this is actually not just Bitcoin, but any network. So like Facebook, Amazon, Apple network, all those servers, those are few nodes with many connections, many internet connections. Whereas if you go down to the other side, you would see, like, I don't know, my website or a lot of WordPress websites or just personal small shops that make up the rest of the internet. That's a lot of nodes, like huge amounts of servers, websites, whatever, with few connections. Okay, so few nodes with many connections, many nodes with small connections. That relationship is a power relationship. The 80-20 rule is another way to describe that. It's a power law. So yeah, that's the fascinating thing, is that Bitcoin's, even its price, grows like this. And I have no idea if it will continue or not. A lot of people in the power law community, which there is kind of one now, think that this is a given. I don't necessarily see why it's a given. I do understand the reasons, like it's a network, great, fantastic. There's a lot of people using it. But all the government money supplies in history have grown exponentially, much faster, much less sustainable. They also have a lot of weapons. They compel people with tax. So it's an interesting theory. Anyway, I didn't want to get too bogged on the side, bogged down on some of that theory. I don't have too much time today, but we'll keep going. Good morning, Diddy Fee. Okay, thanks for that. 21-day EMA. I got to get these charts up quicker as well. I don't think I can chart that for you actually right now, which is hilarious because it's such an easy short-term thing. Let me see if I can pull up. For those that have a TradingView account, you can just do this yourself too, but let's look. Yeah, I think this one has 21 day. No, this is EMA 5. Why did I get that? Hold on. I'm such a novice at TradingView. It's quite funny. Let's take off the 4 hour. Let's go to the day. So this one is even the 5. It's bouncing off of. It's a 5 day. Right? This is a 4 hour though, so I'm sure if I did it on a day, maybe it would be different. In any event. Whoops. I want to show you this one. Not necessarily good or bad, but just let's go through this. This is kind of an interesting model. So it's a power relationship. When this is the dollar change per day, negatives are off the chart. All right, so if it's negative, then just whatever, let it be off the chart. And you can see it's all across the map. All right, actual daily can go up 1,000, 2,000. Right, let me take the trend off just so you see. 3,600. All right, but we can kind of chart this path, and it actually forms a little bit of an interesting range. So right now, the Bitcoin power curve moves up $117 a day. That's what it does. And by the end of this year, you know, the good thing is, again, this is why I just try to preach, keep calm and carry on. Like by the end of this year, it's going to be $152 a day on the trend. That's how much this black line moves up a day. Okay. Now let's look at the month. The month moves up $3,500 a day. Okay. And what's kind of interesting is it creates a channel of the actual daily movements. It's kind of weird because, yes, price can move down, it can go negative, and I just ignore that on this chart. Like negatives are not focused in, not captured here. But still, you see these little like hashes basically, and you can see where they are. And then if we get like constant price movements, which are above the 2 here, above the monthly change of the power law, then it's kind of bubbly territory. And as you see, we haven't had that for the past 2 years, just a little bit here, here, here. And if you get above the yearly trend, which by the way is $37 a year, another thing to think about. Think about all the investments you can possibly make. I'm never financial advice for Bitcoin as always, but the Bitcoin power law moves up $37,000 a year at the moment. At the start of last year, January 2025, it moved up $27,000. All right, so now it moves up $37,000. The start of last year was only going to be $27,000 higher at the end of last year, a couple weeks ago. So this is also kind of a shocker line. If a daily price change ever got above this number, right? And that's a very rare event, but in any event, I think it's an interesting, kind of slightly interesting way to look at price moves. And, you know, certainly nothing bubblish, as you guys can tell, but a signal when things might be getting kind of out of whack. Thank you. Yeah, no, I like it too. It's again, low time preference, right? So if the yearly trend is let's just run through it. It's $37,000 now for this year. Last year, last year 27,000. Let's go to 2020. Let's see the power law in action, basically. So start of 2024. 2024 is not that long ago. Think about what you were doing at the start of that year. It's 20,000. The power law would have moved up 20,000. 19,000 at the start of 24, 20,000. Let's go back to 2023. Let me even take the actual daily just because it's more annoying, actually. Start of 2023. Think about what you were doing at the start of 2023. Were you buying Bitcoin? The power law was only set to be $14,000 higher. $2022, 9,000. 2021, 7,000. So the increase is still power, but it's a faster increase every year. All right, at the start of next year, we're going to be on a $26,000 trend. And actually, I might have just been a year off. Let's just check the math ourselves. 2026 year end is going to be 173,000. Take away nearly 50, it's 123, 125. Yeah. Okay, so that's the past year. That's the past year. So it's even better. This is what we're in store for this year in the power law. You look at the end. Could show it either way. It's trailing. It's a trailing figure. So this is what we're in store for this year in 2026. A $50,000 move in the power law. Last year was this. 37,000. So it's even better. Good call. Yeah, by all means, I'm not saying, back up the truck and always never financial advice here, but I do think the way that the world is going geopolitically, if people don't understand what they have as an asset right now, then I just, I sort of don't know what to tell them, right? I want to show you the money supply again. I've been changing so much in the back end that this is pretty funny. It even will show you down to the dollar instead of trillions. I'm almost done. I'm doing a lot more currencies this quarter. And this is just, it's going to be a more delayed result because, as I said before, the U.S. just released the data where I could calculate up to M3, which is not typically calculated, like a week ago. Anyway, this is the monetary base. It's been going down over the last 2 years. Bitcoin's been going up over the last 2 years. So Bitcoin does not always do what the money supply does. And the reason, of course, was this madness here. So they've been pulling it back in. This is a worldwide figure. And look, you even got it down to the dollar here. This is not showing you in trillions. 26.1 trillion as of June. All right. Now I want to show you trailing 12 months. More reason again. Like, I'm not a fan of hoping for chaos so the Bitcoin price goes up, as you guys know by now. But, measured over the last 60 years, this is, 55 years. This is an all-time low still that we've been at as far as where the money supply is going. And it's going to be very similar for Q3, which is still coming very soon. We know that when times are uncertain, a key tool of the central bank and of the Treasury is to issue more debt and for the central bank to buy more debt. On the other side of the ledger, this is a liability for central banks worldwide, 26 trillion. On the other side of the ledger is a little bit of gold and bonds. So this is the ammunition that money printers around the world use to prop up the price of government bonds. And what I'm saying is, if you look here, there's plenty of room worldwide to buy more bonds. That might sound crazy, but compared to history, they were buying they were growing 16, 15, 16, 17% a year. All right. Y2K, 25% a year. QE1, 2, 3, 30, 40, 50% a year, 30, 40. This crazy season peaked at 33. There's plenty of room. But again, I don't say that like really with glee. I'm actually not a doom and gloomer. But they have room. Hello, sir. Good morning from Sweden. That is awesome. Very jealous. I want to take my daughter to do that. Thank you. No. Let me show you. So this, Giovanni posted his analysis on Reddit a little bit before I did on Twitter in 2018. But I was looking at a guy, he's fairly famous on Bitcoin Talk, called Trolololo. And he was doing a logarithmic regression. And it's a slightly different formula. And Bitcoin was better following that formula in the early years. Like here is one of his charts. A lot of his charts I've noticed are like somehow not on Bitcoin Talk anymore. So this is one. But notice this goes to 2014, end of 2014. He just stopped posting after a while. I don't know. But this is a logarithmic nonlinear regression. Power is also nonlinear. Exponential is nonlinear, but this is logarithmic. So the formula, where's my website? Did I lose it? Did I close it? Here's the formula. This is what he was using. And the formula actually worked a little bit more with this way. Basically, when the curve moves, the y value is when x equals 1, right? So, I'm sorry, the what they call the intercept, basically. The net effect is it's usually a way faster explosive growth at the beginning, then it slows down because you're just shoehorned into this parameter. But Bitcoin was doing that at the beginning. And then if you just go back to the curve here, let me show you. So this is the power curve now. And you can kind of see that, right? So like if we only looked at data, say to here, this evolving trend will show you basically where the power curve was here, and it was sort of way off. Like this is where we know what we know based on all time data. This is what we know, this line. This is how it would have looked at the time, kind of like a tangent. It's not exactly a tangent, but it was moving in this direction way faster. Power curve would have been a great fit as well, but I guess logarithmic was better. I haven't back tested the comparison, actually. Might be interesting to do. But it was just explosive growth at the beginning for Bitcoin, and then it leveled off. So it kind of looked logarithmic. But after a lot of time, particularly after like 2016, you'd start to see that it was doing power growth. So that's the story of the power law, basically, is you needed some time to see what was the better R squared, frankly. It's really not that complicated. Anybody can do it in Microsoft Excel. It's not like you're just observing. But as you can see, the crazy growth levels off from here. And we still overshoot it from time to time, right? These big booms pull it up, and then we've pulled it back down after we're below it. But it's a great point to actually bring up again, is that, no one knows the future, but if you think about how this thing has grown in the past, sort of what's the word? The market credentials that Bitcoin has built up over time, it more and more verifies what we see. And what we see is a network curve, which is a power curve growing in time. So it actually, in my opinion, should give you a lot of comfort in holding the asset, because it's continuing to be on this curve, which is a very unique curve for a financial asset. And it's fun, right? It's fun to trace it each day, just see how it looks. And like I said, these are fun days, because we look at here. You can even see this pulls the power curve up. The power curve was being pulled up at the time, and then we pull it back down. And we stabilize it, but and the interesting thing is, since the adoption of ETFs, kind of like I believe it was David _ENG who talked about this gamma cage, but the volatility's really been ironed out now by the traditional markets. And so now we're not even we don't have the big booms. And now we're just right on the power curve. So, and then another thing to say is, you might be wondering, do we pull it down every day? Yes. Is this a record low? No. So the worst was here, right? See right here? May 2017. See how the dotted line is under the black line? So we had 3 long years of pulling this black line down, and then still, all right, this didn't exist at the time, so 3 long years. And then just before we started to pop in 2017, we bottomed on this metric, which is the evolving power curve. So, and I showed a different chart. I can pull it up. The evolution, basically, of the curve, in that this is the lowest prediction it would have given, is in May 2017. Which means that in January 2026, even with this sort of soft performance, this is not the lowest this line has ever been relative to the trend, relative to the overall trend itself, which is another good thing. Yeah, totally. Human interactions, networks, trading, nodes. It's a great book, Scale, by Jeffrey West. Definitely, everybody should check it out if you're not familiar. Just to clarify again, same thing. This is the same curve I showed you, but this is a monthly chart, because it's too much data to calculate the other way. But so these values all meet here in January 2026. My actually, don't show it. It doesn't really matter. So we go back in time and look at number 2 now. Number 2, like right here in May 2018, which is a little bit after the boom of 2017, we projected 180K thousand Bitcoin today, which is a remarkable price because it's much better than the other curves I showed you earlier. You know, stock to flow and all that. But it's a little high, all right? It's pulled up. But if we want to see the lowest projection that was ever made, it is right there. Right there in May 2017, $119,600. So that's another, whatever, benchmark signpost. And I would say it's still bullish, right? Because we're above that level. And even here, like if we fall below it, we fall below it. It's not going to break the curve. But $119,000 price, which it's amazing that it could even predict that, right? In 2017 when the price was $2,300. And by the way, notice how off it kind of looks here. This goes back to what I was just saying. Like we're off the chart up here. It's just not, it's not really evidence of a good power relationship, or at least not a power relationship that extended into, you know, a long-term average. But anyway, you bring it to today and the trend is 127K. So if we want to make a record low, we still got a while to fall. We do fall every day that we're below the trend, but we're still nowhere near like record low levels, even though we are falling slightly day by day by day, right? We were at evolved 116K right here in October. So when I was making YouTube videos in October, this is the power trend that I was showing you. That was the trend. But it's fallen. It's fallen because we've been below it. So if you paint it back in time, it's now lower. But we got some time. We're still not at an all-time low, which would be $119,000 power trend. We might get there, or we could shoot back up. That is the question, is it not? Can't make too long of a stream today, guys, but yeah, I would say, you know, I'll go light on the geopolitics today because it's, you know, we just got to keep things day by day. Spend time with your fam, with your friends, hodl Bitcoin. That's always the method. You know, but even if we go back down to like here, right, which were like really, really low lows, 0.3%, 0.4% of the power curve, all right, and the curve itself looked like this at the time. So even if we fall back down here by next year, it's still $60,000 Bitcoin. Am I calling for that? Maybe. As you know, I have not been too keen to say that the cycles are completely broken. Although I like the business cycle theory that Sminston's been putting out. I would say this is still in play. But it's really low. It's a 10% probability. 20% probability we get to this number, 72,000 by the end of the year. Could happen. Just have a plan. We are all so lucky to have access to the escape hatch that is Bitcoin amidst all the chaos. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, guys, it's going to be a short one for me to start the week. Got a couple appointments today, but everybody have a great week. Stay strong, hodl on. Don't get too overworked with all the crazy geopolitical madness, especially if you're European. I understand you. Good morning, sir. This is also a possibility. Although there is a little bit extra risk there, perhaps, with stretch. Perhaps. Although it is a titillating 10% yield, if it doesn't break the buck. I'll give more on it tomorrow, all right, with Money Supply. Thank you, guys. I got to run. Take care. Everybody have a great week. Bye-bye.